down, if you guys don't mind.
You good?
Guys, I'm pretty
Yep.
sure you guys will be on your best behavior. And there's one last thing that I'm forgetting, but I can't remember it for the life of me at the moment, but that's all right. All right, so let me kind of backtrack just a little bit. We are in esports business strategy. We are talking about the ecosystem of esports, both domestic and global. We're really breaking down the genres of the gaming ecosystem, including first-person shooters, what they are, what their pros are, what the cons are, what the boundaries are around the culture and ecosystem. We broke down MOBAs, what they are, RTSs, sports games, and the like. The students currently are working on a project that is executed in 3 phases, and that is to produce live events, break them down, and then create what we call SOP. SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures. Quite advanced concept, I think, for undergraduate students, but definitely necessary if we want something to be repeatable, replicable, professional. And that's where we're moving. All right, we are beyond playing the game, and we are entering into a space where we are managing, producing, and building capital so that we can share and add value back and forth, right? That's what we focus on here. So those 3 phases are number one, to watch and participate. So we did a provost colloquium where they got to watch and participate simultaneously as they created and crafted many and kind of micro ecosystems of gameplay. They each had a monitor that they had their games on, their console games, and they were able to play with the audience members in Smash. They played Rocket League. I think it was Call of Duty was the other one. Was there a fourth one? I think the other one was also Smash. Okay, so that's how we kind of broke that down. And so next week, they will all create a micro-friendly competition between, a couple friends, like 4. They bring like 4 friends over. They get their set up just like this in GameCube, and they just basically have a beta test of their system in our facility. And so that brings us to you guys. Okay, that 3rd phase then is to actually go to scale and open it up to the university. That's November 17th. But next week, they are responsible for, we have Mario Kart, we have Rainbow Six Siege, we have Smash, we've got Overwatch, we got League of Legends. They are responsible for creating those microcosms within our game agnostic environment. And what we are going to talk about here is how you guys have awesomely built incredible businesses, systems, facilities, and how you guys think about it from that professional level, right? And it'll allow them to have some opportunity to ask you guys personal questions. So that's why we're here today, okay, with these awesome people. So let me break down all of these awesome people just a little bit, and then I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. All right, I'm just going to kind of give you a little shout out. We've got Danny Martin out of Texas. He's a couple of hours behind us, so we've got that hour shift happening. Built an incredible business with Geek Leads, and then it converted a little arm of it as Esposure. He'll tell you more about that. He's got multiple facilities and an online educational platform and beyond. He's been doing that for a few years here at a very high level. We've got Ben Schlegel. He'll tell you his position. We just met, but he's working for Nerd Street Gamers, which is locally to us in Philadelphia. And they have a really incredible business there with their incubator process that they've got. We'll kind of explain how that works, as well as a national footprint, building facilities in Colorado and throughout the country as a land-based system. And they're actually having a position over at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, right? Wells Fargo?
That's correct.
That is the Wells Fargo Center, correct, good. And then last but not least is our very much local GameQ Lounge here. I got a guy clapping over here. With Greg Quinones, who owns his facility here, running a ton of games there. We actually partnered with him over the summer with our National Science Foundation grant and camp, and the students loved it. They had a great time. And so these incredible business people are going to be able to talk to you all about what they do, who they are, and kind of give you some insight into what it means to do this at a very high level. So why don't you guys just introduce yourselves first, and then I will jump into questions. Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, we do have Sly Cooper here. She hung out with us. She actually broke down. She's an influencer. She has a Twitch channel. She's hanging out with us here. She's the first person shooter expert, and she's also ex-military. So we salute you and thank you for kind of sticking around. Okay. All right. So we'll start off with Danny, then we'll go Greg, and then we'll go Ben. That's what order I have you guys here. Okay.
Perfect. So thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this experience. It's always really cool to speak with students in regards to something that we're incredibly passionate about. For me, my journey started in college, just in the same seat as you guys and ladies. And it was around about 2011, 2010, where I was on campus. I was fixing consoles as a way to make some capital. I will also leverage the actual individuals who I fixed consoles with to host tournaments. If somebody gave me their console and it had let's say NBA 2K or Madden, or so I will host tournaments around that. And then actively understood the value of tournament organizing. So people will see me host tournaments. They'll ask me if they want to be able to host tournaments as well. I would teach them, and I recognize that I can only teach so many individuals in the time span that I have as a college student. So I started to really focusing on software development, and I got an internship and a job, full-time job in Silicon Valley. So I spent around about 3 years there working with some pretty cool individuals who were pretty notable in the software development space, and actively went and pursued building out a technology platform to run and host tournaments. Wanted to compete with that of the likes of Smash GG, Battlefy, and all of those, and quickly recognized that, I didn't have the actual means to do that from a capital perspective. So I converted to utilizing the facility to focusing on a specific niche as you're creating the technology platform for tournament organizing. Fast forward, we've actively recognized the value of education in esports. And so we've combined our educational technology platform with that of a facility to engage with the actual local schools, national schools, and global schools, and also organizations and companies to create a pipeline for individuals to learn all components of esports, from management, marketing, technology, competition, and production in esports, and focus on providing career opportunities for those individuals is everything that we're about here at Esposure. We will be expanding pretty fast in different territories. So from our perspective right now, we're just trying to speak the value of educating individuals, so therefore they can develop cool portfolios to help them retain jobs, whether that's getting a scholarship to schools and from a collegiate perspective, going to the armed forces, or going straight into the workforce. And so this is one of the biggest focal points for us.
Epic stuff. A lot of stuff coming out of there for sure. Thanks, Danny. All right, so let's go to Greg. Greg, what you got?
What's going on, guys? I'm your local GameCube Lounge over here. I started out waiting for like another esport place to join up with my friends and play some video games. So dream came true. I started up my business here right before COVID. Esports really really pushed my business through COVID and got people out and came out to play some video games. Most of my biggest event here would be Morton Friendlies. That'd be a Smash venue. And also Cross Up, if you guys heard of that, about 200 people up in the Poconos here. For esports, as a venue owner, it's been a really fun journey, learning a lot of new stuff. As you can see, Danny Martin over here, he's definitely a veteran. A lot of things I learned over a year. But mostly I would say like the biggest thing I've learned through definitely through esports is working on your production value, getting all your stuff together, and really, as you said, perfect way to say it is just to build up your venue so you can actually host these events at a high level. And yeah, I'm right here in Strasbourg, so want to come visit, check us out.
Yeah, you got a fan over here. You got a fan. Some great pictures.
Thank you. We're working on this week.
Cool. All right, last but not least is Ben Schlegel. What you got, good sir?
All right, what's going on, everybody? My name's Ben Schlegel. I'm the Vice President of Events for Nerd Street Gamers. Been gaming my entire life. I have a little bit different background probably than others in this call, where I was gaming on PCs in the 90s, consoles, and it's always been a part of my life. But after I got through college, I went and worked in traditional sports and entertainment. I started with the Philadelphia Flyers as like a ticket sales guy, ripping 100 calls a day, selling tickets, and worked my way up to over 10 years to be head of events for the Flyers in the Wells Fargo Center. At that time, Comcast, who is an investor in Nerd Street Gamers, made it a seed investment in Nerd Street, and I was kind of looking for a different avenue, saying, hey, I've been here 10 years, what can I do that's different? I've always wanted to work at a startup, and started following along the Nerd Street Gamers kind of journey and following them. And we did a small activation at a Wings lacrosse game on the concourse, and I saw this crazy line, and I was like, all right, there's something here. 6 months later, I was working for the company, then as like the senior director of events. But Nerd Street Gamers, we're an esports infrastructure company. Our goal is to bring accessibility to esports. We realize that there's a huge disparity in equipment and access to technology across really the country. And I think we've seen that even more so in the last year and a half as we battled the pandemic. So we are building facilities. We'll have 10 by the end of this year under our local host brand. And we create our own original programming and tournament series. And then we also, do a lot of service work with a lot of the major publishers, Riot Games, EA, Activision Blizzard. So happy to be here with y'all.
So as you can see, we've got a ton of incredible talent and experience sitting here in this hall. So I'm going to start off with these incredible questions that are going to help us kind of get an idea of how you guys run and operate. So the first one is, what are your processes for preparing for an event at your respective facilities?
I think you're still muted, boss.
Sorry about that. So I can start with that. So the first process is one, there's two aspects to it. It's client-based, and then it's also your own tournaments and events. Typically for us, when it was geared towards, we do a lot more client events. So in this instance, we would actively, speak with a Zoom call or meet in person with the particular client, identify their needs, what are some of their KPIs or key performance indicators, and we will actively set an actual a rubric to say these are the assets that we need in order to implement it into the production and also the event coordination side of it. So we'll bring on our events coordination team, we'll bring on our production team, our events coordination team would actively create we like to call it a PowerPoint that would actively showcase, here's the date, here's the time, here's the KPIs, here's the responsibilities for the client, here's the responsibilities for our entity, and then showcase a run of show. So basically build out a run of show to say, at this time, it's going to happen at this point, and this is what time it's going to end, and make sure that we are in agreement amongst the entity Esposure, and then also when it comes down to the client. And then that's the first step that we focus in on, is just make sure that the client and the actual our company is in agreement. So therefore we can make sure that everything is run smoothly throughout the whole process. So that's just the first thing.
Epic. I just need to just get in a little bit. Did you say KPIs? Is that what you said? Use the word KPIs. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Can we pre-plan this in any type of way?
Yeah. So you said pre-plan it?
Did we pre-plan that?
I don't know.
No, we didn't. What are we talking about in class? What are we talking about? What's one of the first things I have to establish in your planning? It's called a what? Nobody? What do we say? What they call? I just goals and what? KPIs. Same thing. We put them all over our slides.
Yeah, they're very critical. Typically your KPIs is also going to be of value to your sponsors as well. That helps back your events, whether they're backing the prize purses, whether they're backing the actual equipment. They're going to want to know what they're going to look for, whether there's viewership, whether that's sales, but understanding what their KPIs with your supporters is very critical. So therefore you can create parameters to meet those KPIs, because if you do not meet those KPIs, you do not have the sponsor anymore, or the partner, or the actual, associate in regards to coming to your events.
Yeah, I mean, just to go to go off of what Danny said, I mean, it's so important to be a great listener and understand, especially when you're in a service-based role of what do they want and what's going to make them, feel good about the product. It's like aligning on that high level vision, making sure the people that are there that are producing and the creative end is in sync with the client. And then you need to measure it. And that's where those KPIs come in. Like, how are we going to measure the success of this event? And all of the vision that you just told me you want, well, what's it mean when we turn it to numbers? And, when you're dealing with outside sources, it's so important to have that alignment from the time you scope out the project through the end to make sure that you're measuring success in the right way.
Definitely agreeing on that. I can tell you some stories. One of my first events when I first started, I made that really bad mistake of not listening to some people about monitors. I use big screen TVs, and as we know, gamers, man, you get a little bit of lag. It's not good for your first event. After the second one, I fixed my mistake, and ever since then, I started getting more people and stuff. And then you can see, production value, the gameplay, and all that stuff definitely correlates together. And that's part of your planning. You need to make sure your equipment and everything works with your clients, and your clients or your customers come into play. So any event you do, always look for every little mistake you can make.
And learn and grow from them, right? And continue to measure and measure up, measure up, and measure up, and measure up. Those KPIs. Great, great, great. So a follow-up question to that would then be, well, what tools do you use to capture and replicate the best practices for yourselves and your organization?
Yeah. So I'll take that start off. One of the biggest tools that we utilize is a platform called ShowFlow. So ShowFlow is a run of show software that allows you to hit every component of your event from starting at 7:00 a.m. to what's going to transpire 10 minutes after that, what's going to transpire 10 minutes after that. So ultimately being able to organize your full show, one for the event coordinators that are there, the tournament organizers, the bracketeers, while at the same time making sure that it's the same process for the production team, the individuals who are running the streams and the individuals who are monitoring the cameras and all of such. You want to make sure that they're all in sync. And then actively, once you get that run of show in sync, then you want to do a run through. And that run through will typically be a day ahead, 2 days ahead, or sometimes depending on, the time that you have, it can be 1 hour before the actual event. So, our processes that we utilize, and that's just one of many, is ShowFlow.
I actually never heard of ShowFlow. That's good. I just wrote that down. But yeah, for us, I usually use I'll say we kind of like plan everything out. We use the old-fashioned Google Docs, kind of like make like a script. We kind of go from we basically plan out all our stuff and graphics ahead of time. We have a tournament coming up soon. Shush. But we have Nicktoons coming up, and we were gonna tell everyone about it soon, but we want to make sure your graphics are good. All the cam setups you want, even up to the point where you just want to do like we have a fist pumping cam where we're just nice little fist bump, and even little things like that. But you got to plan it out, like, okay, when the scene's about to end, the final like victory screen pops up, all those little things you want to make sure, so that way when people are watching it, and you got to remember too, like after you do a stream, you put it on YouTube and stuff, you want that rewatch, because then people are gonna be like, oh, this event's cool, hey, check this out, man, I went to GameQ or Nerd Street or whatever, and went like, hey, check this out, man, I got this cool clip, and little things like that people post, and it's like free advertisements. So your production and planning everything out where every little thing is showcased, that's like very, very, very important. Like you cannot stress that enough. And like even adding things like, oh yeah, I want to add a new camera, you got to make sure that camera and that angle has a purpose and when you're going to use it. Otherwise, you might have an issue with OBS and be like, hey, this camera don't work. You just have a blank screen for a little bit.
I just did the same thing that Greg did, and I was like, all right, jot down ShowFlow, because we are still using Google Docs as well for our run of shows and whatnot. And I was actually just trying to look for some solutions in that. So I'm glad to hear that's one that someone's using and getting some success with. As far as scaling, like this is something we're facing right now, really every day is, we went from 1 to 10 facilities over the course of the pandemic, and we've been slowly opening them up, but how do we give somebody the same experience in Philadelphia, in Austin, Texas, or Denver, or St. Louis? And there's some companies that are really good at doing that, right? Like you walk in McDonald's and you're going to get the same tasting cheeseburger and have the same experience in every single one in the country, no matter where you are. And that's something that we're trying to provide on our end in a live experience is, I'm only one person that does events, but I have a team of people. We have a broadcast team, we have a comp ops team, and they all need to be aligned and thinking through the same processes. And that comes down the top level of setting out, what are our expectations? What are our rule sets? How do we want our events to feel and flow? And setting up the standardized documentation across all of those different pieces so that everybody's working the same way. And it's honestly one of the biggest struggles that you get in a startup, because a lot of people are really good at, coming up with ideas and saying this and that, but like, can you actually execute it and operate it? That's where the real difference is made up. And that's where, whether you succeed or not at scale it's a huge, kind of bottom line that you have to hit is, great, we can do this at one when we have all of our best people in one location and we're all doing it, but can we scale this across 10, 20, 30, 40, hundreds of locations eventually and still provide that same experience for everybody? So coming up with those SOPs, understanding, what everyone needs to be successful, and then also letting them run too, right? Like you have to trust your people to operate. You can't micromanage it. So you got to hire good people. You got to say, here's the tools you need. Here's the steps I need you to take, but you're on the ground and you do what you think is right when the moment matters. And that's how you're going to be successful at scale.
And to kind of add on that, he's extremely right. On our end, the hard part for us is that we are an educational entity. So we do live events and we're looking to scale, but we have to have a sense of micromanagement because our individuals that are coming through our pipeline are very new, right? The goal for us is to help them build their portfolio. So extremely new, but that's been one of the hardest challenges. And so, we see just like how Ben stated, our main facility is of the best individuals. So it's it's a process. But when we look at, scaling, we're also scaling with the viewpoint of educating. So it's and if you have a client, then that client is not as nimble to mistakes and just like as we would be. So it's a really fine line between, for us to let maneuver, go out in the pasture, and also make sure that those SOPs, like being stated, is extremely precise. So therefore individuals can, still adhere to, our events and said client events. So it's a balance that we have, but because we're more educational centric, we have to have a little bit more of the micromanaging, the more in-depth type of hands-on experiences. And that's something that we have to focus in on when we're training.
And that's so important. Like we're seeing that too in our business, where we know there's a subset of the super gamer, right? That knows exactly what they do when they walk in and they sit at the PC and they're like, this is how I get on Steam. This is what I need to do this. And this is what I need to download. But if we want this to work at a mass market, we need to make it accessible for everybody and not intimidating. Yeah. So that when you're dealing with those people that don't live it and breathe it every day, like we all do, how do they feel comfortable walking in for that first time and sitting down and competing or just, boot camping or playing on that PC? And how do you get people that are just this thing called esports? How do I get my company involved, right? That's the next step that I think is so important for the industry is engaging and making that subset of people that are gaming even bigger than it already is. A ton of people are doing it, but there's also a lot of people out there that are super intimidated by it. And you have to kind of know your audience of who you're dealing with and when.
Yep. And I really want to put the point of real quick, that team thing, man, that's definitely honestly, as a venue owner, right, I'm really good business oriented and analytically, but when it comes to, good camera angles and stuff, my boy Vincenzo, I love him, dude. But he trained me so much in little things, and I'm now I'm starting to get okay, this is the angle I want, this is the things I want. And then just the other day, actually just last stream, I was running the books and I did pretty good. But yeah, definitely having a good team and having other people that know certain things that you might not know, it also helps a lot. Because me, for production value, I'm good as one-on-one streaming, I have my mouse, keyboard, mic, it's all good. But when you're doing someone else's and doing production value where you want multiple cameras, commentators, and this, it's definitely good to have someone who's really oriented into that specific thing versus someone like me who's like, okay, I know how to run the event and get people in here and get the money to get the stuff you need for it. But when it comes to using the equipment, I'm like a little iffy. So we go back and forth and teach each other little things. And tell you, man, having a team is great.
I think what's really important to capitalize on here in this conversation is the fact that businesses and organizations have their own goals and visions and KPIs. And when they entertain their clients, they must meet their clients' KPIs within the scope and the strength of their own abilities and direction too. So combining what we talk about as vision, mission, and then your strategic pillars. Let's start talking about strategic execution. Mission, your vision, mission, that's going to be able to tell you what you can do and where your strengths lie based on the things that they're talking about, which is their team. All teams aren't created equally. All skill sets aren't equal. And that's what's really cool about this industry is because you can come in from all these different angles and experiences and still provide value, extraordinary value, especially when you team up with people and you got these guys going to scale on each of their areas of expertise. I want to open it up to the class for questions. Make sure they get their questions answered, and then I'll be transitioned into another piece that I want to go into. Questions from the peoples.
From peoples.
From the people.
From the people.
We want to hear from the people.
Come on, don't be shy, guys. You guys ask me questions all the time.
Yes, got it. Come on up. I'm going to step out to the side and let it marinate.
Who's the brave first person?
You got one coming. One's coming.
He's coming. He's coming.
Coming. Brave soul.
The brave soul.
So when you did your first esports event, like, were you nervous about it, or did you meet your goal of how many people actually came to your event?
Oh yeah, so I'll go ahead and go right into that out of full transparency. My first esports event was in college, like I stated, and it was kind of crazy because I did a fight night tournament, and it was kind of weird because I like fight night, but clearly no one on campus liked it, right? It was just like, I'm going to do a tournament I love. So I was on campus and I would go in front of the convocation center, which is like essentially like an arena. And I put a table and I had my sign-in sheet and I was there every day after class. And I received probably maybe 50 signups at that point. And I host a tournament. And at the day of the tournament, I was ready. I was like, 50 people, this is going to be awesome. And only 2 people showed up. And the prize purse was like $500. So that was my best business experience where I'm like, wow, I still got to give this $500 to the 1 and 2. I didn't make any money. What can I do differently? And that's what really made me think about is like, if you're going to run a tournament, it may not just be about the game that you want to host. It may be it forces you to think about other games just as much because, you can really engage with other individuals' interests. And so that was one of the biggest, ways that I really started to really identify the different genres and the fighters, the shooters, the sports, the MOBAs, the, battle royales. And so in this point, it got me to focus in on what's the market, what's the landscape of the market. So I was pretty confident going into my first tournament, but my hopes got dried up really quickly. And it made me think about it from more of a analytical perspective, going into the next tournaments. And after that point, I became more confident in the actual data that comes with running a tournament.
I definitely had a very similar experience, as I was saying. I had a really good turnout. I got lucky because a lot of ESU kids wanted to come over and hang out at the new place. And being Smash Bros just came out with like the new characters and DLC, so it's like a hype time. Um, I use a lot of you can't see it right now, but I'm looking at it. One of the big screens, it's 50-inch. It has, and this is if you gotta be a pro gamer to understand this, but it's a 5-frame delay that you have to use a camera to see. But a lot of these guys, they know their equipment, like you were saying before. I think it was Ben said it. They know their equipment, they know what they're doing and everything and what they use. And actually, I'm gonna switch my camera angle because I actually have cameras over there right now. But they, we had to switch things around. And if I switch to 920, yeah, okay. So I'll take you guys with me on a tour. But Mom's a user, you know. But so we have this stuff over here, and this is our equipment now. So these is what you should get. Nice small monitors, very slow refresh rate. Do your research. 1 millisecond delay versus having, I don't have any TVs on the side, but if you had a big 50-inch TV, which that's a big no-no for fighter games because the delay is just too much. So on my first tournament, I got a lot of that as you say, with the quality, a lot of people didn't like it. And I also had stream on, you can change the camera angle, boss. But good, yep. But my friends switching cameras. But we actually did a lot of big changes. So we have, actually I do have a screen. So TV in the background, you can't really see it. Never mind. But but we also changed some things where seating and things like that because people didn't like having you don't want people behind you. So you don't want people, you're playing a game. Here, you're sitting behind me. But so you don't want to play in a game, I'm getting serious, and this guy behind me is like, oh snap, you shouldn't have did that and all that stuff because you don't want to hear that. You're playing for money. So another thing I had to do was change seating. And it's been a fun year, I'll tell you that. But I learned a lot. Seating, your TVs versus monitors, how you have your setups, and also even how you plug things in. I don't know how many guys play Switch. Raise your hand. I can see your cameras. So, anyone play Switch in there? No one's raising their hands. Crazy. No, there we go. There he is. All right, yeah. So you know how the Switch has like 3 ports? You have the one inside and 2 outside. Believe it or not, there's actually a certain way you're supposed to plug those in for competitions. So little things like that I learned on the way, and I take a lot of advice and listen to every single person who had a little complaint. And now I run one of the best Smash locals, I think, in the closest one to Jersey, other than being in Jersey. So we get a lot of people come away from New York and stuff just to play, and a lot of people tell me just last night, check out our Twitter, about 5 people from there actually came all the way from Long Island in Jersey, about an hour and 10 drive, just to come to Game Q just to play because they're like, I love how you consider every little thing and you sit down with everybody and be like, hey, what am I doing wrong or what did you think can be improved? And those little things help a lot, especially with our production. Like another thing, sound. Having speakers and monitors that people could change themselves. Some people like to hear it. Some people have their own earphones when they play, and some people like pure quietness. I don't know how you do that in a big hype crowd, but hey, some people like that. But yeah, all little things help, and having that ability to change, I think, is one of the best things with GameCube, and I'm gonna try to keep changing as long as I can. So.
Yeah, for me, one of the biggest things I learned, and this was definitely my first event I did was a service gig where Kellogg's hired us to do like an esports multi-city tournament in conjunction with Walmart stores, and it would wrap up in a big final. And I realized how important game selection is, especially when you're dealing with someone that's not endemic and they're just like, oh, this Overwatch game's out. There's this Overwatch league. Like, we should do Overwatch. And I remember, I was going to Dallas and I was like in a Walmart parking lot between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I'm like, all right, like 2 weeks ago, I was doing Ariana Grande and now I'm in a tent in a Walmart parking lot. Like, this is wild. And we were doing Overwatch, a 6v6 game, which was like the wrong choice. People have to come on like a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, show up, find 5 other people to play with. At that point, I was, 6v6. And just to be able to pull a crowd in and should have known better of like, hey, like, are we gonna be able to get people to put teams together and come out and compete? And we repeated this over like 5, 6 different locations. And yeah, for the finals, it was great because it was like fly to Denver, compete for this big prize pot. But I really just remember like being in that Walmart parking lot and like roaming around the center, like hustling to get people to come into the activation to like, the Kellogg's team's coming today, it's got to be full, and just full on sprinting around like, hey, come on in, like sit down, let's put together a squad and compete real quick. And just kind of that like scarcity, that moment, we're just like, oh man, the client that's paying us X amount is going to show up and it's going to be completely empty. Most likely because we just picked the wrong game. If we picked something that was a lot more casual or something that wasn't as intimidating, like there's hundreds of people in and out of that place, you know, all day, every day. And we could have definitely put a better event on for our clients. And you know, it ended by, we were in an inflatable tent, by like a windstorm coming and just literally blowing the entire thing over and like collapsing. So that was my first foray into running esports tournaments, was like throwing our bodies on top of this tent in a windstorm so it doesn't blow away. But it was also, I look back on it now, as like 6 months after that, we were running the Fusion homestand. So like the growth of a startup and going from being in a tent in a parking lot to running a homestand in like a 3,000 seat venue. But it was one of the things that makes me laugh the most now, just looking back on it, kind of how, you know, starry-eyed I was for my first esports event, and took a ton of learnings from it.
Epic growth opportunities for sure. So I just wanted to share with you. Thank you, man. Those are great shares, man. Real life examples in the now. I just want to share with you some of the cool things. I like bragging on my students. Share with you some of the cool things that our students have actually done. I'm going to share this with you. One of the areas I find lacking in the industry are really good visual aids called map out ecosystem. So Megan created this incredible ecosystem, which is neat, but it's a Prezi, and it speaks to NBA 2K. And it speaks about the relationship between the sponsors of the game and the league and the teams and the platform, as well as all the pieces in between. So I think this is a really neat tool that can help people understand a little bit deeper the relationships between the games and the players.
Yes.
System, right? It's pretty neat. So I'm going to share this with you. Megan's going to make sure she has her name on it. But this could be a great resource, possibly. I think.
Very much so.
Yeah, right?
Really cool.
If you want to come up, Megan, and just show this just a little bit, literally like 30 seconds. I should probably just step out of the way and let her kind of show it. Show it off. It's all about them.
Show off your awesomeness.
Let me move out the way. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So basically, I kind of like started with the game, like what the game is, who develops it, who publishes the game. Basically, talked about how they have like the other subdivision companies. Then it's a very long list, so it's gonna go back and forth. And then basically, I went from the game. I think I went to then the league and competition, and explained kind of like how they run the league, how they run the competition, like when that started up, especially like the 2K league. Then I kind of explained like the teams, their affiliations, when they started, who their players are. Then kind of talked about the platforms which they stream the games on. And then kind of talked about the sponsors, like who's sponsoring teams, who's sponsoring the league, who's sponsoring the game, and then also kind of talked about how fans and how nothing would be there without like people watching and actually putting in revenue to the league and game.
Appreciate that. Thank you very
This
much.
is awesome.
Meg. All right, and then you're gonna clap it up for Meg. And then one more, Kyle, come up here. I want to show Kyle's work off as well. I think it's important. It aligns very nicely with the work that Danny's doing with Esposure. Just again, 30 seconds run through, and then we'll wrap this up. I just want to show off. All right, so all I wanted to do was I wanted to create a ecosystem by making it into a video game. So you guys want to take a few seconds, we can play it. How do you?
I'll wait to the.
All right. So since we're online, we have that mode here, so we can play multiplayer. So I got to put Dr. Young's.
Choose your fate.
So we're gonna do online. You guys want to do teams or you want to do online?
Online is cool.
So on.
So pretty much I put down the rules of how to play and everything. And then
we have a category, so we can say teams. We got the tic-tac-toe board, and then it gives you the question. So Team Fnatic earned 50K prize pool by defeating teams in League of Legends. So the person would choose which one to enter, and then if it's wrong, you gotta try again, get it right, the board is up. So you would keep doing this until the game is over. And once you finish the game, if I can go to it, this also took me a long time to do. It took me like 4 days and it's over 340 slides long.
Whoa.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
the effort, man.
yeah, and then at the end, if you want to have a little fun, there's the credits, and then there's a little meme to it.
That's annoyable.
Interesting.
I love it.
This is awesome.
Right? Yeah. Whoa.
Oh man, I wish I was as cool in school.
So we've got some digital media experts here that are starting to contribute. We love to participate and engage the community and actually help bring that, forward and add value where we can.
Yes.
So we're working on that. Those are the types of things that we're working on. We are so grateful that you guys came to join us.
Yes.
We want to give you the
Oh,
last
thank you.
word, but we're grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule to come join us and work with us. And we look forward to having the opportunity to actually work with you. So we're going to give you the
Yes.
last word, and then we'll wrap it up, and that'll be it for us because we've got to be done by 7. But last word for you guys, and then we'll thank you very, very much, and then that'll be it for us. All right, last word. What you got?
Perfect. The last word for me, for me to you guys and ladies is perseverance. I think in this instance, we've all had to find different, unique ways to keep the train moving. Even when you think about a pandemic, when you think about the climate, the economy, when you think about the development of the industry in itself, it's always moving. It's constantly changing. And understanding that that's innovation, and innovation requires perseverance, and it also requires you to look at the data, and the data then says, hey, this is the route that it should take, and then ultimately, if it doesn't take that route, you should also have another, plan B, plan C, but ultimately your passion comes through with perseverance. Nothing should stop you if you're very passionate about it, and your position will show if you're passionate about it. So actively understand the value of being engaged and wanting to do it, not being forced, but wanting to do it.
Oh, for me, I would say, man, it's a big journey. Go for it, man. Like anytime you want to just start something, go for it. You're never too young, never too old. You know, you can always get more knowledge, so that's always there. Always keep learning. Um, I would say too, if anyone here too, like I'm down the block. If you guys ever want some like experience or extra help, or even just use me as a spam box, GameQ Lounge is open, of course, the issue guys, especially since you guys are right down there. We have 3 more events being planned out. I do need commentators for all of them, so if anyone loves just talking it up, come on down. Um, but yeah, I would definitely say experience goes a long way, and having a lot of people to like go off of things and pushing yourself to do other esports, and even getting to things like Fortnite and Smash Bros and just going into any game. But always, of course, do your research and get into it educated. That way you have an idea of what you want to do. And having a place like local venues and grassroots areas to jump into, even just having friends that would just come to a place just to try it, it's always a great thing to have that experience with people that would just be honest with you, because once you get into the world of just going to esports with strangers, you have that one impression and you don't want to waste it. So every time you do an event, or you make an event, or even get into doing other esports stuff in general, go with it all. Go with 100%. If you make mistakes along the way, people let you know, and some people teach you something you didn't know. You know, so yeah, go for it. And like I said, GameCube is always a home for a sandbox. I'm learning myself, so come over, hang out.
I think for me, one of the biggest things I would leave you with all is like, you know, and perseverance is a pretty good word, but I would say, you know, grittiness. Like no one's going to hand it to you because you got this degree or you went here or you know, it's not just going to happen overnight. Like you got to get out, you got to get your feet wet, get in it, get any experience you can, and keep pushing ahead. Because it's really the people that are taking the time to learn the field, make those connections, and keep pushing through even when times are sometimes tough or there's a roadblock in your way. Those are the ones that are going to kind of push through to the other end and succeed in doing what they want to do.
Epic. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to leave any contact information in the chat if you'd like, because this video will be sent to them. They'll have it in 2 places, both YouTube and the raw Zoom version of it, so they'll be able to see the chats. We look forward to working with you guys as usual. You know, Danny, we've done a couple of good interviews. Greg, you know, we do what we do. October 20th is next week, Greg. So 4 p.m. If you want to come over and swing by, you'll see some really crazy things here. But it's in the mix. Everything's
October 20th?
Progress. Yeah, that's next week. Next week.
Oh
Next week,
shoot, put that in.
If you've got time. If you've got
I'm coming. I'll make sure I come.
Great. All right. Thank you guys so much. Salud. Appreciate you all. Take
Bye-bye.
care, y'all.
See you
Peace
later.
out.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.